when Sarah Whitaker, a 32-year-old nurse at Millfield Regional Clinic, vanished without a trace. Sarah wasn't just a nurse. She was the kind of woman who stayed late to comfort grieving families, organize blood drives, and dropped off casseroles to sick neighbors. Her smile was a fixture at the farmer's market on Saturdays, and everyone in town knew her beat-up blue Subaru. That Friday morning, she left work just after midnight, following a long shift in ER. She texted her best friend, "Finally off, so exhausted. Wine and Netflix TMRW." That would be the last anyone heard from her. By Saturday morning, her absence was impossible to ignore. She hadn't shown up for coffee with her friend Jenna, hadn't returned any texts, and her car wasn't in her driveway. Her cat, Daisy, was unfed and agitated. A missing persons report was filed by 10:17 a.m. Millfield small police force jumping fast. Flyers went up around town. A search party was organized, and Sheriff Tom Beck, a veteran officer just 2 years from retirement, promised the town answers. There were no signs of forced entry at her home. Her wallet, keys, and phone were missing. Her last known location? A traffic camera caught her car heading south on Route 12 at 12:39 a.m. in the opposite direction of her home. Initially, authorities feared she had been the victim of a carjacking or a random abduction. After all, Route 12 had a reputation: dark, wooded, and mostly empty after midnight. But then they found her car. On March 8th, 5 days after her disappearance, a hunter stumbled upon her Subaru deep in Wayne Forest, miles off any main road. The vehicle was unlocked, the driver's seat empty, and a faint trail of footprints, quickly washed away by snow, led toward the dense woods. Inside the car was a pair of scrubs with bloodstains, her phone smashed, and a half-burned photograph of Sarah with a man that no one in town recognized. Forensics found blood in the trunk. DNA later confirmed it was Sarah's. It was no longer a missing persons case. It was a possible homicide. As investigators dug deeper, a more complicated portrait of Sarah emerged, one that few in Millfield had ever seen. Sarah had recently taken out a second phone, registered under a different name. Phone records showed frequent calls to a number linked to an Akron address. She had also transferred several large amounts of money, nearly $15,000 total, to a private account in the last 3 months. Her journals, found in a locked drawer at her house, painted a troubling picture: a woman torn between two lives. She wrote of falling in love with a man named Daniel, a married pharmaceutical rep she met at a medical conference in Columbus. There were hints that she wanted to leave Millfield and start over, but felt trapped by her image in the community, and more mysteriously, what Daniel has on me. Sheriff Beck drove to Akron himself, and that's where the case broke wide open. Daniel Carter, a smooth-talking pharmaceutical rep in his early 40s, was indeed married, with 2 children and a spotless corporate record. He denied knowing Sarah, but when shown the burned photograph, his face paled. Eventually, the dam broke. Yes, he admitted he and Sarah had an affair. Yes, she had threatened to expose him, but he insisted he hadn't seen her in over a month, except for one thing. Surveillance footage placed Daniel at a gas station just 10 miles from Millfield the night Sarah disappeared. And in the footage, clear as day, Sarah was in the passenger seat of his car, alive. When confronted with the footage, Daniel confessed. He had met Sarah that night. She had begged him to help her leave town, to disappear for good. He claimed she was afraid, that someone had been watching her. His story: he'd drop her off at an isolated cabin he occasionally used for sales trips, promising to come back with supplies. When he returned the next day, she was gone. The place was ransacked. He panicked and fled. That's when authorities searched the cabin and found traces of blood matching Sarah's. But there was nobody. A local news tip shifted the investigation again. A nurse at Millfield Clinic recalled seeing Sarah arguing with someone in the parking lot weeks before her disappearance, a man she identified as Greg Whitaker, Sarah's estranged brother. Greg had just been released from prison a year prior for assault and drug charges. He'd been staying under the radar, living in his late father's old cabin just outside Wayne Forest. Sheriff Beck and his team brought Greg in for questioning. He denied everything at first, but DNA found in Sarah's car and at the forest cabin tied him to the scene. And then, a message was found on Sarah's hidden second phone, unsent, saved in drafts. If anything happens to me, check Greg. He's been following me. Faced with mounting evidence, Greg confessed in tears. He hadn't meant to kill her, he said. He wanted money. He knew about the affair, knew she was planning to leave, thought she might give him a fresh start. When she refused, things got out of hand. He'd buried her deep in Wayne Forest, marked only with a broken tree branch. Her remains were recovered 2 days later. Millfield mourned. Candles lit up the church steps. The hospital closed for a day in her honor. Jenna, her best friend, spoke at the memorial. Sarah was everything good in this town, even when she was hiding pain none of us saw. She deserved so much more. Greg was sentenced to life without parole. Daniel Carter lost his job and family. He was never charged but moved out of state, disgraced and forgotten. Sarah Whitaker's name now lives on at the hospital, a scholarship for nursing students in her honor. But the town still remembers that week in March when their quiet world cracked open, revealing the shadows just beneath the surface. Sometimes the people we trust the most carry the darkest truths. And sometimes it's not the strange in the woods we should fear, but the family in our own backyard.